Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Benarroch, President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Manitoba. It's a real honor to be here today and an honor to welcome our distinguished guests. Our Premier, Wab Kinew, the Honourable Rebecca Chartrand, Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs, Jamie Moses, Manitoba's Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation, Churchill Mayor Mike Spence, and MLA Jennifer Chen. Thank you all for gathering with us on this campus, which is on Treaty 1 territory and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. The Port of Churchill is in Treaty 5 on the traditional lands and waters of the Nunavik, Dene, and Inuit. For generations, Indigenous nations in the north have traveled, traded, and kept communities connected in every season. And we give thanks to the Hudson's Bay. Those waters have sustained life and carried people for generations. Through these waters, the North has always connected to the world. And today, as a changing climate creates the possibility for longer shipping season through Churchill, we are mindful that we are part of a much older story. Since time immemorial, these waters have brought people and communities together. And the work now is to deepen our understanding of what is changing, provide the evidence for what is possible, and help inform the decisions that will shape Churchill's futures. So thanks to wonderful partnerships, University of Manitoba has been assisting in these pursuits for generations. For instance, the late Professor David Barber, always a visionary, helped lead the development of the Churchill Marine Observatory. This is the only lab of its kind in the Arctic, and it's helping us understand how we can responsibly enlarge the Port of Churchill and protect the environment. This is a nation-building project that can transform the health and prosperity of northern communities, and our university, University of Manitoba, wants to do more of them. When Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered his speech in Davos, he gave our nation a rallying cry, and Manitoba has answered. This is a pivotal moment in our history, made more exciting by the fact that we have bold leaders who govern with deep vision. We are on the precipice of doing very big things, and the University of Manitoba is eager to play a part in turning our collective ambitions into action. And it's an honor to be president of such a university, and I'm privileged to be your MC today as we hear more about how our governments, universities, and the private sectors and communities can work together to build bigger futures for communities like Churchill. To begin today's formal event, I'd like to invite the Honourable Rebecca Chartrand, Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs, to bring remarks. She's a Member of Parliament for Churchill, Kiwatinuk Aski, and an alum of our university, and it's an honor to welcome her back to our university today. Good. Right on. Great.
Okay, good morning. Bonjour, Tansayanin, Wapanuni Kwanjishnakas, Wabishke Mangan Dutem. It's a pleasure being here today. Thank you, President. And thank you. It's always a pleasure to stand with our Premier. Good to see you again, Premier. And to all of the other special people that are here today. Mayor Spence, thank you. So for decades, one question has hung over the future of Churchill. Can this become a year-round northern trade corridor? Today, we have a much clearer answer. With the right ice vessels, operating conditions, year-round marine access makes it technically feasible. That does not mean ships begin operating 365 days a year tomorrow. It means we now have stronger evidence to answer the next question. What will it take to do this safely, responsibly, and commercially? Churchill has enormous potential. We all know this. That's why we're here today, to celebrate. Connecting northern and western Canada to global markets, moving grain, critical minerals, and other resources. Strengthening northern resupply and giving Canada another strategic trade corridor. As the Member of Parliament of Churchill, Kiwetinokeski, I know this is more than a port. It connects north and south and increasingly it can connect north to north. And one of Churchill's greatest strengths is that the port and railway are Indigenous and community-owned. As the corridor grows, I want more of that value to stay in the north, and that is what we continually hear from the north. We need northern solutions for the north. We need to support northern jobs, procurement, support better resupply, and lasting economic opportunity. These studies give us better information about changing ice conditions, navigability, vessel capability, and what extended or year-round operations could require. We also have to be clear, changing sea ice is part of a much larger climate reality that is profoundly affecting northern communities. It's impacting wildlife and overall ways of life in the north. Understanding those changes is not celebrating them. It is part of being prepared for what is to come. And scientific possibility does not replace the work that comes next. We still need the infrastructure. We still need the railway, the port, the operating systems required to move goods safely and reliably. We need a credible commercial case, and we must continue Indigenous and rights holders' engagement, undertake the appropriate environmental work, and respect the planning, assessment, and the regulatory processes that apply, including Nunavut's established process where applicable. That matters because Churchill does not end at the Manitoba shoreline. The water and ice of Hudson's Bay are integral to Inuit Nunangat and to the lives, cultures, and economies of Inuit communities in Kivalliq. A stronger Churchill must create opportunity on both sides of the Hudson's Bay for northern Manitoba and for Kivalliq. And at a time when the world is paying greater attention to the Arctic, strengthening Churchill is also about strengthening Canada's northern resilience, presence, and its sovereignty. The federal government is not studying Churchill simply to admire its potential. We are working with Manitoba, with the Premier, with Indigenous and Inuit partners, Arctic Gateway Group, northern communities, and industry to determine what it will take to turn that potential into a functioning northern trade corridor. Today, the science has helped us answer what is possible to build the infrastructure, partnerships, and northern capacity to turn the possibility into a stronger Churchill, a stronger North, and a stronger Canada. So thank you to the researchers for the important work that brought us here today. Miigwech.
Thank you, Minister Chartrand. It's now my honor to invite another U of M alum to bring remarks. Please welcome to the podium Premier Wab Kinew.
Dr. Benarroch is right. I am an alumni. I've got the fundraising emails to prove it. And in fact, the last time I think I was in this building, it was to take my first year stats course. Probably the most important course of my entire undergraduate career. And I might have learned a lot there. But I have to say, these reports we're celebrating today have even more exciting information in them. It's telling us that Churchill could be a year-round port right now with current technology and using icebreakers and ships that are a lot cheaper, a lot more affordable than we previously thought. And what that means is a longer shipping season, more economic opportunity. It means that doing LNG off the Hudson Bay coast is much more realistic in a much more immediate time frame. I think up until this most recent research, everyone was thinking about icebreakers that were going to cost billions of dollars, maybe tens of billions of dollars. Well, what you see here is for a used icebreaker between $50 to $100 million. We could have year-round shipping in Manitoba in the next few years, which is amazing. This makes our vision for Churchill much more doable, much more achievable, and it will bring benefits to the entire region. I know that people in Nunavut are very excited, people in Churchill, people in northern Manitoba are very excited. And so as a provincial government, we're working hard on the investments. Historic increases in adult literacy this year. investments in the trades, investments in education, because we want to make sure that people who historically have been standing on the sidelines, when we build up Churchill, they're going to be on the front lines in hard hats and steel-toe boots, bringing home economic benefits to their communities right across Manitoba. This is an investment in the north, but be clear, every trade person in all of the province, southern Manitoba included, will be heading to Churchill if we play our cards right to build up the future opportunity. And so we've got a ton of work ahead, as the minister shared. Of course, we're going to work with everyone. We've been laying the groundwork with First Nations and Métis governments in Manitoba through the Manitoba Crown Indigenous Corporation. We've been reaching out, of course, to the Inuit communities in Nunavut, as well as ITK, bringing that perspective from Quebec and Labrador. And so to ensure that all those voices are going to be heard, we are restarting the Hudson Bay Roundtable to bring all voices together, including, of course, Mayor Spence's community. And by the way, Arctic Gateway Group, which Mayor Spence is very involved in, congratulations on the grain shipping this season, which builds on the critical minerals and the potash and all the other victories. And as a fellow politician, there are municipal elections this fall. I hope you run one more time, because we're that close after decades and decades of your work. We need to see you get this thing to the finish line. So it's an exciting time for Churchill, which means it's an exciting time for Manitoba, and indeed an exciting time for Canada. Year-round shipping out of our northern port, it doesn't just make Manitoba a maritime province or a half province. It makes us the next big resource platform in Canada, and that is a tremendous investment opportunity. And of course, to the people of Churchill, we recognize that your home is very special, and we are going to keep it that way. Polar bears, beluga, tourism, traditional way of life. And we also know that people want opportunity for the future generations. So we're going to bring those things together, and we're going to do it in a good way. So we've got the technology to break the ice, and now we are going to invest to break open the opportunity. Miigwech Bizindayek, merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Premier Kinew. We'll now hear from our final speaker today, a longtime friend and partner of the University of Manitoba, His Worship Mike Spence, Mayor of Churchill.
Good afternoon, everyone. Put on my reading glasses. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. Premier, Minister Chartrand, it's an honor to stand with you today. Thank you to the University of Manitoba for hosting us and for the excellent research you continue to bring. And thank you to FEDNAF and the Arctic Research Foundation for your expert work. On behalf of the Arctic Gateway Group, I want to begin with the journey that brought us here. It's a long journey. As you know, several years ago, Northern Indigenous communities came together to take back the control of the Hudson Bay Rail Line and the Port of Churchill. The importance of taking it back from the former American owners and to bring it back to local Indigenous and community owners. We did this because of the importance of the North and also understanding that this is home. We understand the railway, we understand the port, and it was too big and too important to neglect this opportunity. Since then, as you all know, the Arctic Gateway Group and our ownership group, One North, have partnered with governments of Canada and Manitoba to start to rebuild the process. We have invested into the Hudson Bay Rail Line. We have strengthened the port. We have improved reliability, introduced modern safety technologies, and worked towards bringing customers and cargo back. We are working, and it's paying off. Today, the railway and the port are exporting a more diverse range of commodities than ever before. We are now positioned to play a much larger role in Canada's economy and the future of our home to north. Next week, the first vessel full of grain in 6 years departs the Port of Churchill to Europe. The following week, a vessel carrying both Manitoba zinc and Manitoba potash will depart for Europe as well. That's great news, isn't it? Isn't it? So it's representing the first ever potash shipment from Churchill and the third year in a row for zinc exports. This is just a start. This is what you can do when you involve Northern Indigenous people to play a role in developing a stronger region, a stronger province, a stronger country. We as Indigenous people have a right to play a role. It's critically important that we have transformed two pieces that could functionally change the future of the Port of Churchill. The first is to make sure that safety, reliability, year-round marine access through the Hudson Bay and the Hudson Straits, which is why we are here to talk about today. This is, you know, the importance of making sure that the rail line is invested properly, modern, hitting the weight standards that are important. You put these two pieces together, what do you have? You have a modern, heavy-haul railway connecting to the national rail system and a port serving global markets throughout the year. And Churchill becomes something fundamentally different. It becomes a major national trade corridor. It becomes infrastructure capable of carrying the modern resources and products of Western and Northern Canada to the world. And it becomes even an important part of Canada's economy, Northern and Arctic future. This is the opportunity we've been working towards with industry and other governments. And this is why we have reached out to our friends to FedNAF and develop the ICE study for the Port of Churchill. Their deep experience and expertise in Arctic marine shipping is exactly the plan to prepare us for the future. The importance of making sure that we have the expertise to make it work. FedNAF's work, taking alongside studies from the University of Manitoba and the Arctic Research Foundation, gives us confidence that we can ship year-round from the Port of Churchill and that we can ship around from existing polar class vessels. They also have given us the roadmap of work required to make year-round shipping happen. This work includes planning, testing, environmental and regulatory work that needs to happen, and meaningful engagement with the communities and Indigenous right holders around the Hudson Bay and the Hudson Straits. We have to get it right, and we will get it right. That means building economic opportunities while representing and respecting the thriving Churchill tourism market. It means understanding and addressing potential impacts on wildlife, the environment, sea ice harvesting, and our rights. And it means ensuring that Indigenous people holders are at the center of the discussion, the importance. That principle is built into the Arctic Gateway itself. Our ownership group, One North, is made up of 29 First Nations and 12 northern communities with a 10% ownership stake available for the Keewatin Inuit Association. So Indigenous and northern ownership is core to who we are. And it will remain center of how we approach the next phase of this work. When it comes down to it, we are building an opportunity so that we can make life better for Northerners, including our friends and neighbors to the north. And what we are announcing today is a major step forward. We have moved from asking whether this large vision for Churchill is possible, doing the detailed work requires to make a possible, safe, responsible, and commercial viable way. Together with Indigenous northern communities, as well as industry and governments, we will keep building upon the Port of Churchill to serve the North, to help diversify Canada, and to better connect our country to the world for generations to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Spence. So this brings us to the end of the formal part of our event. I believe we have some time for questions.
Mayor Spence, in association with your role in Arctic Gateway, the FedDev study, if you don't mind going in front of the microphone, please.
Pardon me?
The microphone.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The FedDev study clearly says that ice class will deter access, there needs to be more studies. The port itself needs some upgrades, LNG ship really late, can't maneuver there. What other help studies and how long will they take to actually determine whether there can be that ability by PC3 or PC4 vessels as soon as possible? How many more studies about the approach and about ice movement are going to need to be done? How long will that take?
Well, I mean, that's a question for the research to answer in terms of, how long it's going to take. My understanding about all that is the process at beginning. Let's see where it goes. But the fact of the matter is, there are strong possibilities of making that happen. And that's why we're here today, is really to connect with the researchers that are there to make sure that, is it possible? Yes, it is. Climate change will play a role. Today, for instance, the end of November, just a year ago, ice-free. You look out towards the Hudson Bay, you get with the right wind direction, you've got open water, less than half a kilometer away. So let's be real here. Climate change is upon us, and let's be prepared for the next round. As we progress as a port.
The U of M scientists said there will still be some ice floating around in Hudson Bay, even under the most violent pessimistic global warming scenarios. So, how confident are you that you're going to be able to see when year-round shipping? Here's my big issue here. There's always going to be some unpredictability in these ice conditions. You're an insurance underwriter, right? You're going to insure a boat moving through there with a valuable cargo with the unpredictability. To your knowledge, what are you going to do when you're pitching investors on this project to convince them that this is actually doable? Because even if it's technically feasible, you guys come up with the magic money and Mark Carney is long. Insurance folks are still going to have, the underwriters are still going to have a 5 and 6. What do you do to convince you? I
think, let's look at the fact that, like a company like they're looking at the fact that they've been operating through northern Canada for many years, right? So we've got the right company, the right vessels that are available. And there are going to be times, for instance, where it may not be possible, but as we look towards the future, we have the technology, we have the know-how, and it'll come about.
One last one for you, Mike. We've heard.
As it relates to the insurance companies, I think it's time that we as business folks are starting to challenge the underwriters. We are saying, look, climate change is upon us, and things are different, and it's time that they accept the fact that change is happening, and they need to be realistic as well.
Richard.
Premier, question, and congratulations on this, because this has been something that I think Mike and others in Churchill have really dreamed about. And this sets things up for the summit in Toronto, the Investment Summit next month. And your ability to be able to go there and say, listen, the glass is really half full, not half empty when it comes to Churchill. I'm interested in what other steps that you need to take, not just in the months and years ahead, but in the weeks ahead on the mining and mining regulations, because there's an investment community there that sees a lot of potential in northern and central Manitoba that's still saying, Manitoba, you've got regulations, even when it comes to staking, those types of things that we have to move on. How much work needs to be done here to make this so that those investors can say, this is much more than just a pipe dream? And what are you doing right now behind the scenes to kind of make that happen?
Well, Richard, I'm just so grateful that you didn't point out that Bartley and I are wearing the same sports coat today. Because can we get a zoom out from some of the camera guys? Because this is quite a compliment that I have the same choice as the esteemed Bartley Kivas of CBC. We're in the business of taking down barriers. What have people said about Churchill? They've said, oh, you got to de-risk it because of short shipping season. You got to de-risk it because of Indigenous participation. You've got to de-risk it because of regulatory. Okay, great. We've got a study that says year-round shipping can happen now. We've got the Crown Indigenous Corporation so that every Indigenous government has had a chance to be involved from the very beginning. And we've got a one project, one review framework with the federal government. So again, if there's other projects out there that want to get going, by all means, come see us. We'll make it happen. I find business people make excuses when they don't have the money to move a project forward. So that's why I'm saying come see us. If there's a specific project that is needing a road to be built, we'll build it. If there's a specific project that needs infrastructure, needs hydro to move from a 10-year timeline to a 1-year timeline, we've proven with mining development that's underway in northern Manitoba today that we'll make that stuff happen. So by all means, if you've got the money to invest, we'll make it happen. We want it to happen in the right way, environmentally speaking, Indigenous engagement. But at the end of the day, what does everyone want? Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike? Opportunity. The ability to be able to provide. Excitement for the future and optimism that includes economic but also environmental optimism. So we can put that all together, and yeah, happy to do the wheeling and dealing necessary to make that true.
What are the next steps that you have to do to get on that critical projects list and move it? You know, there are people still in Ottawa that are kind of going, well, let's see what happens with Churchill. This is a major point today, but where are you in that process in convincing the Premier or the Prime Minister, sir, of those next steps and getting this? And I think perhaps September 15th, if you've got some major players there, that certainly helps, doesn't it?
Sure does. And, you know, I think the thing that I'm very, very grateful to the Prime Minister and his team for, Mr. Chartrand as well, is that the Port of Churchill Plus is in the deal book for that investor summit. So that's significant. You got the big sovereign wealth funds, you got the big pension funds from all over the world. Prime Minister has said $100 trillion American coming to that summit, looking to invest in Canada. And for the Churchill project to be in that deal book is, I think, the most significant thing we could have right now. So we'll head to Toronto in September. We'll be shaking hands. We'll be making elevator pitches. And hopefully soon enough, we'll bring home the bag, as the kids say, to Manitoba.
We've never heard how much this whole project costs. You've never stated a project range for the various aspects of Churchill Plus beyond some indications of from facilities and Pennsylvania railway improvements. How many millions of dollars will Churchill Plus cost?
It's an investment. I think the hope is that we can build an LNG terminal and the infrastructure to feed it, which would be a $70 to $80 billion project. LNG Canada on the West Coast is the largest private investment in Canadian history to date. And in order for Churchill to move energy products and to be economically viable, we basically have to build a project of that scale. So that's the target, and that's what we're going to continue to work towards. Having year-round shipping is a prerequisite for that level of investment, and having ice-breaking capacity in the region would unlock private sector dollars to make that happen. The Prime Minister himself has stated he wants to, I believe it's double LNG exports by 2030, and then take it up to something like 100 million cubic tons by 2040. Right? Very aggressive. That won't all be accomplished by the West Coast. And so Churchill, in order for the federal government to meet their ambitious, but rightfully ambitious, energy policy goals, Churchill should be part of the mix.
So this study says, the FedDAP study says you can't move a fully laden ice-hardened freighter with natural gas, can't move it into the existing port. That strongly suggests building an offshore port, artificial
Yes.
island, whatever you would be.
Yeah.
How much capital is an artificial island?
That's within the number that I stated. A terminal off the shore, yeah.
That's okay. We heard strong opposition in the PricewaterhouseCoopers survey from people in the north to any kind of fossil fuel infrastructure. They use the word any. How would you overcome concerns? And I guess this is more of a question for Mayor Spence. How would you overcome concerns from Inuit and other northern indigenous peoples to this about fossil fuel shipments through their regions, their traditional lands?
Donald Trump has changed the world. Conversations that were politically no-go territory when Trudeau was the Prime Minister are now the way of doing business under the current orientation that our country has. And I've seen evidence of that in the north. Okay, crude might be one thing, but on LNG, people think about it like propane that we all use in our backyards when we're barbecuing, right? So the idea of a leak or a spill and the impacts on the environment, right? It's not really the same level of concern. And people in the north want to build human capacity, want to build economic opportunity. We've all got great ideas for treatment centers and on-the-land programs and ways to revitalize the ways of life that have been here since time immemorial, but how do you pay for it? And that's what we're talking about here. Nunavut as well. People there are open to the discussion. People have very specific, we would probably maybe even think they're like very local concerns about the ecology and the environment. Those things can be sorted through. We can talk about those things. We can ensure that specific hunting and fishing and land-based activities are going to be safeguarded and protected and hopefully revitalized. You know, when I was in Arviat, yes, a lot of people live off the land, but they also have a great program, a young hunters program, teaching the future generation how to live off the land. And that's the reality in the north. In many communities, regardless of which jurisdiction you're talking about, is that the old way of doing things needs encouragement and shepherding and support, and economic resources are one of the crucial ways that we can make that happen. So yeah, I'll invite the Mayor to add his perspective as well too.
You know, as a community that's gone through a lot during the very challenging days of the 80s and 90s, you know, we have, I grew up with a larger community of 6,000 people, huge, probably the largest military installation ever. Back in the day, there was, you know, there was opportunity. There was opportunity for seasonal port employees, not only for Manitoba, but also for Saskatchewan. You know, all of this together is, it's all about developing communities. It's all about making sure that there's a long time process development. We have, in our community, we have three critical pieces of infrastructure. We've got a port, we've got a rail line, we've got a big runway. In order to keep that, you know, the goal has always been, you know, we have to play a role in helping develop not only our community, but also our province in Canada. Yes, this is an opportunity. What this is all about making sure that we invest properly and making sure that there is the importance of consulting and finding a balance to everything we do in life. That's what we're all about. You know, it's all about finding a balance to make sure that there are opportunities and making sure that, you know, as an Indigenous person, you know, we have a role to play in terms of making sure we're a guardian of the environment, of the land. At the same time, you know, we want an opportunity. We want Churchill to flourish. We want the region to flourish. We want tourism to continue to play a role. The critical piece here is finding the balance and making sure that we're doing it right. That's the goal. You know, you look at, for instance, you look at markets like Winnipeg. You have a lot going on. You have a lot going on. You've diversified. We in the north, you know, the resources have been taken out the north for far too long. Whether it's power, whether it's pulp, whether it's mining, where does it go? It builds your streets, builds your hospitals. What happens in the north? We got to fly. We got to fly. We got to take the train. Even our people want to go to university. They come here. That's got to change. You see, it's all about reinvesting back in the north and doing it right. You know, we've got youngsters coming on. They need an opportunity, you know? So yeah, the opportunity is there, but the important part of all of this and doing it is making sure that we do it in a way that we have our northern Indigenous people have a role to play in helping us shape this. I guess, Nancy. To who? Sorry?
Premier.
Premier.
Just wondering what vessels you guys are kind of leaning towards wanting to purchase after these studies, and also what the timeline might be for them.
Yeah, I think we're in the process of planning for all of that based on what's in this report. To me, the most important page in this report is that table that shows the capital and operating costs for the various ships and what they make happen in terms of an extended shipping season. So I'm like you. I want the best possible vehicle for the lowest possible price. And then we'll get to work in terms of landing all that investment everybody wants to see.
Just one more question. A question for a colleague, actually. When your government was sworn in, you said that the child should make it to their 18th birthday. After nearly 3 years in government, that's still not happening, as CFS deaths and the extended death cases show. So I just wondering.
I would encourage your colleague to approach that with tremendous sensitivity. If you look at the Children's Advocates annual report, the number of children dying in Manitoba has gone down since we've taken office. This is one of the North Stars of our government. This is why we are making there be universal school food programs in every school in the province. That's why next week you're going to see us roll out probably the biggest curriculum change in recent memory in Manitoba history by bringing fitness and diet and health and making phys ed just have a renewed emphasis behind it. And this is why we doubled the prenatal benefit. So it's a major, major priority. Ouais.
Est-ce que pour les infrastructures que vous voyez, c'est d'aller de l'avant avec les infrastructures à Churchill, c'est quoi l'apport du gouvernement fédéral pour attendre à recevoir pour gérer ces clients?
C'est un partenariat. Nous avons un partenariat excellent avec le Premier ministre, avec le ministre fédéral, comme le ministre Chartrand. Et puis, je pense qu'on travaillera ensemble à étudier ces rapports qui étaient partagés aujourd'hui et puis faire des décisions. Comment est-ce que le gouvernement fédéral et provincial pourrait faire des investissements pour attirer des investissements privés à Churchill, aux régions du Nord?
Est-ce que vous trouvez pas qu'il y a peut-être un manque d'investissement qui a été fait par le passé dans la région du Nord, notamment de Churchill? Donc,
Non.
Non, vous ne pouvez pas? Est-ce que vous pourriez parler de ça avec un premier dans les prochaines semaines, dans les prochains mois?
Bien, notre gouvernement, avec le gouvernement fédéral, a investi une moitié de milliard de dollars dans le chemin de fer et puis le port à Churchill. Alors, il y a beaucoup plus d'opportunités, mais je pense que jusqu'à maintenant, nous avons investi beaucoup.
Et dernièrement, qu'est-ce que vous faites pour aller chercher l'investissement privé? Parce qu'on comprend que vous êtes autour de la table pour expliquer des investissements de l'État, mais qu'est-ce que vous faites pour aller chercher des investissements privés?
Bien, nous sommes en train de travailler avec des compagnies privées qui sont intéressées de exporter soit des produits énergétiques ou des minéraux critiques du nord du Manitoba. Et puis, en même temps, je suis très hâte d'aller au sommet d'investissement que le Premier ministre du Canada a organisé pour le mois prochain à Toronto.
Concrètement, est-ce qu'on parle de subventions? Est-ce qu'on parle d'incitatifs envers ces compagnies-là?
Non, non, nous regardons pour un partenaire dans le secteur pour faire des investissements. Merci à toi. I believe that was the MPO's study.
Did they share the results? Or I think that would be, you would want to know the results of a study looking at the market interest for the project.
They won't give it to us.
Okay. Well, we're giving you 3 studies today. So on the one hand, you guys are like, when's all the studies going to stop? And then like, here's 3 studies. We don't have enough studies. Okay. Well, I don't know, guys.
Months ago,
It's not my study to share. It's not my study to share.
Mr. Chambers, why not release that?
I don't know. Do you want to?
Chartrand, excuse me.
Pardon?
Do you want to jump in on it?
Why is the government not released a study from my colleague at CPS?
I think we need to talk to the minister that's overseeing some of these studies, but my understanding is that these processes are already in play and we'll continue to support them.
and then you're just, the federal government in Germany reached a deal that will see West Coast LNG equivalent go to Europe. Are you concerned that these kind of markets frameworks kind of undermine the need for a Churchill port by being able to bring West Coast LNG equivalent to Europe?
Not at all. There's more going on than the media is aware of, and I think in time we play our cards right. You will see very strong markets as export destinations for Canadian resources departing from the Port of Churchill.
Going forward, I know this isn't a feasibility study, but this project is obviously going to need a lot of money and potentially a big investment from, the federal government. Just in terms of, yesterday, obviously, some pushback in terms of American liquor. Did any of those talks, do you think that could potentially have an effect in the future for, potential economic investment in Churchill? And also just wondering if you have any update on, if you've talked to the Prime Minister following the district of Vermont.
No concerns. I think that Churchill is a generational opportunity for Manitoba and Canada, and we have an excellent relationship with the Prime Minister, with the federal government. We're going to play our cards right here and make sure that Canada makes good on what Churchill is, which is a huge platform to be able to build wealth through northern natural resources and energy products.
And what's happening with the Churchill catalyst?
Well, we can call a press conference when we're ready to talk about details for that, but right now, some resources from that are going towards development work with the Crown Indigenous Corporation, and there's potentially some other stuff that may come from that, but we could share more information when we're ready.
And so the climate change is allowed us, of course, CSPC, but also going to do wreak havoc on the permafrost and the land infrastructure, the railway, the port, going to rebuild. How realistic is it given all the strains that are going to be happening with the climate change moving forward?
If you zoom out to the next century, there is going to be a ton of economic activity in northern Manitoba. And so the question for us today is, that's where the puck is going. How far are we going to go to meet that future, right? So that's the reality. I wish it weren't, but it is. So we should make our long-term investment decisions with that in mind. And I think maybe along the way, if we show that the Crown Indigenous Corporation and having Indigenous governments involved from the start prove successful, it might help show some other models that might show that you can have economic activity with less climate impacts. I'm sure Mayor Spence would say a similar message about the Arctic Gateway Group's model, showing that there are different ways than we've pursued in the past to build up northern Manitoba. And so I think not only are these reports saying that we have a really strong opportunity in front of us, but I think there's a lot of innovation happening in terms of how we work together, be that local, federal, provincial, or Indigenous governments collaborating.
How do you reconcile the new ways to invest in fact with investing tens of millions of dollars across the board?
Well, I hope the private sector makes the investment, and that's the reality of the world that we live in. So we're responding to market signals about where capital gets allocated. If we had white hydrogen, proven reserves, if anybody wants to go drill for it, great, let's export that. I'd much rather export that. But the reality is this is where the capital gets allocated in our economy today.
On behalf of my colleagues at Nunavut, they want to know Mayor Spence, Northern Chartrand. What effect will the study today have on resupply of communities? Are they going to be, will the sea lift season be expanded?
I mean, that's always been the goal in terms of, extending the shipping season as it relates to, in this case, Nunavut. The communities want to see naturally more opportunity. They want to see growth. They are, they see this as an opportunity for opportunities. They, everything's lifted out of different communities in the south. So they see an opportunity here for, a better way of life.
Minister, of that 70, 80 billion, let's say there's going to be any private sector investment, how much would the federal government be able to step?
That's a good question. I think part of the work that we're doing under the Major Projects Office is we're looking at those financial pathways. Of course, it includes major investments. That's why the Prime Minister is holding the summit on the 15th. I think we're on track. I think what the Premier is doing and Mayor Spence working collaboratively to demonstrate that things are feasible. They're moving forward in the right direction, and this sends the right signals to investors.
How much annual maintenance will have to be in the decades coming from the Hudson Railway if that permafrost starts thawing and laying the high things?
Yeah, I think that's part of the work ahead of us. I think we need to look at planning and development. I think we're at some of the initial stages of this work. I think the feasibility study definitely gives us a good base. It sends the right signal that we need to keep moving on this work. But in terms of costing, I think that's part of the work ahead. And we look forward to doing that work together.
Ouais. Hier, justement, que vendredi, vous avez pratiquement supplié, vous et les ministres, de remettre de l'alcool américain sur les tablettes. Ma première question, c'était est-ce que vous sentez une résistance de la part des autres ministres et est-ce que vous pensez qu'il sera difficile de unir tous les autres ministres pour mettre fin à les quotes?
Tout ce que j'ai dit hier était correct. Et puis aujourd'hui, nous sommes ici pour montrer au Canada comment est-ce qu'on va lutter contre Donald Trump. C'est pas faire des investissements à Churchill, dans le Nord, tout partout dans le pays.
You probably noticed that Lisa Ray yesterday said, excuse me, American right-wing media are going to pour over your comments yesterday, and by, calling Trump, my United States best friend, this could potentially damage these relationships.
It's true. Everyone saw that Entertainment Tonight video, the two of them together, and that was before AI. It's true.
I'm not arguing with that, a factual basis of that. How concerned are you, though, that the nature of your comments yesterday could actually be seen to be an effort to undermine what the Prime Minister is doing with the trade agreement or further help the Americans to a response to make sure that we don't get out?
Everything I said yesterday stands.
I'm not asking you to recount the comments, I'm just asking how concerned you are about the potential effect on the trade negotiations.
Not concerned.
Any other questions?
All right.
Okay.